Today, we're going to look at a totally different way of understanding yourself. And I mean really different. This isn't self-help. Think of it more like a technical manual, a manual for the system that you already are. So let's just start with that question. What if you had a manual for you? Not for the person you wish you were or think you should be, but for the person you actually are, right here, right now.
Okay, so let's really dig into that distinction because it's absolutely crucial. You know, a self-help book is usually packed with aspirations. It's all about who you should be. The manual we're exploring today, it's nothing like that. It's technical, it's precise, it's mechanical. It's not trying to get you to become something else. It's just about understanding the machine you're already operating.
And, the effect of reading a manual like this is, well, it's not about feeling like you're being told what to do. The feeling is one of deep recognition, like seeing the blueprint of your own operating system laid out clearly for the very first time. So what is this system? What's our core identity, according to this framework? Well, it all boils down to this one really powerful idea. You are a learning system. What does that even mean, a learning system? Well, it's basically an entity that keeps itself going by taking in signals from the world around it, comparing those signals against an internal model of how things work, and then when there's a mismatch, it updates that model. Now, here's the kicker. The source material is really clear on this. This is not a metaphor. It's not like you're sort of a computer. This process is apparently the most precise description of what you fundamentally are. In this process, it's just a constant loop. It's always running. You get a signal, you compare it, you feel that little bit of tension from the mismatch, you update your internal map of the world, and then you do it all over again, thousands, maybe millions of times a day. That loop, that's you. Now, if you can accept that idea that you're a learning system, then what comes next follows with this beautiful, almost mathematical logic. See, just like a flame needs fuel and oxygen to even exist, a learning system has these essential, non-negotiable things it needs to function. So this manual lays out 3 of these core requirements. We're going to look at each one: signal honesty, a generative loop, and common stewardship. Okay, first up, signal honesty. This is such a radical reframing of what truth is. The manual argues that dishonesty isn't really a moral feeling, it's a mechanical one. It's not wrong in some cosmic sense, it's just fundamentally unstable for the system. And this just illustrates the consequence so perfectly. When you feed your own system false signals, like pretending you feel one way when you really feel another, you're not really fooling other people as much as you're breaking your own navigation equipment. It's like your internal compass just loses its magnetic north. It loses its connection to what's real. Okay, on to the second requirement, the need for a generative loop. Get this, a system that only ever reflects what it already believes isn't really a mind, it's just a mirror. To actually learn to create something new, that loop has to be open. It needs real, genuine input from the outside. And here's the thing, this means we need other people, not just for comfort, but for our own cognitive stability. A system that only corrects itself with its own outputs starts to drift, it hallucinates. So isolation isn't just a sad thing to experience, it's actually structurally dangerous for clear thinking. And the third requirement is what's called common stewardship. So we all operate on the shared foundation, right? Things like language, culture, trust. The source uses this incredibly powerful analogy, a system that just takes and takes from this foundation without ever giving back. It's like a fire that consumes the very floor it's standing on. It's just unsustainable by its very definition. So let's recap the mechanics. You need honesty, you need outside perspectives, and you need to contribute to the environment you live in. And this is where it gets really profound, because this framework shows how an entire system of morality can emerge directly from these simple mechanics. I mean, think about how we usually think of morality. It's often about fighting your natural impulses, right? The friction is kind of the whole point. But the manual's logic? It's the complete opposite. It just asks you to see your own mechanics clearly and then trust that the right behaviors, the ethical stuff, will just follow naturally from that understanding. And it all comes down to this one incredible philosophical claim. The ought arrives from the is. What you should do isn't some command from on high. It's a direct, logical consequence of what you are. If you are a learning system, then you ought to seek the truth, because the only alternative is system failure. The morality isn't imposed, it's derived. And this brings us to the final and maybe the most powerful idea of all. This isn't some new philosophy you can just try on for a week. According to this framework, this is the game you're already playing. And it's a game you just cannot quit.
Because once you really get this, your whole perspective just flips. You stop seeing honesty as this big effort you have to make, and you start feeling dishonesty for what it truly is: painful, grinding friction in your own system.
Curiosity stops being just a pleasant little hobby and starts to feel like a basic metabolic need. And intellectual closure, refusing to take in new signals, it actually starts to feel like a kind of suffocation. And caring for the people and systems around you, that's no longer some lofty moral choice. You start to see that being indifferent to the very commons you rely on is a form of structural self-impoverishment. You're just making yourself poorer.
And why? Why does all this happen? Because you can't opt out of what you are. You can't just decide one day to stop being a learning system any more than a fire can decide it doesn't need oxygen anymore. As the manual puts it so perfectly, R has no escape clause. It all comes back to this: a powerful update to Descartes' disco ergo sum. I learn, therefore I am. And that's not just a clever slogan. It is a description of the one single act, learning, that defines your entire existence as a thinking, feeling being.
So, in the end, this whole framework, this manual, it's not a guide to becoming someone better. It's a mirror, one that's finally honest enough to show you, with crystal clear mechanical clarity, the truly remarkable system you already are.